Hi, hello, and welcome to Vertex of Abundance. My name is Serene Priestess Gorgeous. I'll be your oracle today, and I am here to do a little bit of a sermon for the Soul Purpose Saturday Inspirational. We had a business disruption at Vertex of Abundance. Within the course of a week, 2 cameras broke down. So I normally do, in private chambers, I normally do like a dual setting. So I'll have a face talking, and then I also have like whatever presentation I'm doing. Sometimes it's the cards and like a 2 video kind of thing. Sometimes I'm doing a presentation and my face is up in the corner. So I can't do that right now. I still have the selfie stick, but normally I use like a video camera and my cell phone camera, and we're just gonna move on. So today I'll be using the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot, and there's one card in reverse, and I don't go through all the cards. That's not my style. I talk about the major arcana, and that's it. And we're just going to leave it there. So, and then we're also using the Madame Mandora Oracle cards, and I'm probably going to ask 2 or 3 questions, and then I'll channel whatever's coming through. And I may also, I'm going to do the angel messages since we're at a quarter moon, and I usually use the Doreen Virtue angel cards. Is that what they're called? Yeah, angel tarot cards. Yeah. So, and I'm going through a detox right now, so pardon the face with no makeup. When I go through certain detoxes, sometimes I even stop eating solid food and just eat smoothies and have tea and a lot of superfoods like goji berry and bee pollen or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So I'm very sensitive to what's alive in me, and I'm just kind of taking another inventory. All right, so let's jump into this. My findings right now for the collective is that, well, it seems to me like we're trying to go down some path that is not in alignment. It's a lot of my own personal experience. So let me get comfortable. Girl, let's talk this out, right? I made myself giggle. Okay, so, if I say a card, it's not a habit. Don't get used to it. I'll do what I'm called to do. So I'm looking at these 2 energies here, right? And it's technically, it's the 3 of Cups and the Knight of Wands, the Prince of Wands. And I don't use reversals with this deck. If I'm shuffling and a card falls out face up in a deck that I have decided not to use reversals in, I'll still take the reverse meaning. So to me, because I don't read these cards the normal way, to me, somebody's doing some type of ritual and they don't know that there's something alive in them that's, I would call it demonic. Now, demonic has negative connotations for a lot of people, but demonic is oftentimes when there's something alive in you that's powerful or genius in its sense, and it's taken on a material form, or it's in the form, material is much more than we have been conditioned and programmed to believe. Emotions are physical. Does that make sense? Experiences are physical. Even though there's things going on that can't be measured, you can't say a beginning and an end to them. Always, sometimes you can. I know people that are thoroughly adept at emotionality, and they can define emotional nuances that the layman would be completely dumbfounded by. Maybe you're not on one of them. I don't really know. I don't like to engage emotionally with people, so I'm finding right now, especially in the collective, in this, I'm aligning this with my personal and my professional experiences as of late, that we're going down the road trying to accomplish something, even maybe opening up the crossroads, if you would, and something's not coming together. It's like justice is not there. The universe is not approving. So to me, 3s are approvals. It's literally saying like, you may put in the application for time off, right? The ace, and then you'll get the response back, the 3. The deciding and the decision or the discussion of it would be the 2, according to whatever suit. Are you doing something emotionally? Are you doing something? So to me, in this deck especially, and pardon this to the Patro practitioners, but as a Radha priest, to me, this is somewhat demonic. Because the fire is there. Now, it could mean here that there's an emotion inside of you that keeps you to do the same thing, or there's some type of reaction that keeps you to do the same thing, or there's some type of mechanism or belief system that puts you down the same road over and over and over. Like me, I have a tendency to not go to bed on time. And if I'm sitting there doing work, and maybe say I have like a half an hour more work to do, I'll keep going and pushing myself. And it's kind of like my body or my spirit or my soul has said, stop, sweetie, take some rest, sweetie. You know, you can finish this tomorrow. And I'm like, but, you know, I'm going to go to bed with my work unfinished and I have half an hour left. You know, what is 30 minutes going to do? You know, 30 minutes is like 2,700 seconds. I can't shit that out, you know? And that's kind of like a minor thing. Now, sometimes it's a sexual urge, or we have a tendency to give of our spirit, our soul, when we have a little bit of a physical urge too. So when I'm saying demonic, I oftentimes mean consciousness, illumination that comes through the fleshly experience and not spiritual experiences. You know, my definition of demon is different than the average person, and I tend to talk controversially, so I'm trying not to offend, but my spirit has said to me, don't care about that. That's your job to not be offended. Being offended is a choice. It's, you know, I can say whatever I want. You make the decision to be offended. And that's, again, another thing. Woo! Okay, that was a mic drop. So yeah, that was the confirmation. You know, we go about things, we see things according to ourselves, not as they really, truly, genuinely are. And see, this is going to create a experience in our lives that, I was going to say compel us, but what came through in the intuition was force us, because the winds of change are upon us. We're going to go through changes in our surroundings. And what I'm hearing in spirit is that evolve or die. You may do something over and over and over again, but the learners will inherit the earth, and the learned will find themselves perfectly equipped to inherit an earth that will rot and die. So evolve or die. If you stay the same, you are by definition getting worse, because the world around you is not going to remain static. It's going to continue to be dynamic and change. And so if you're not getting better, by definition, you're getting worse, because nothing else is around you is going to stay the same. And that's kind of like being outdated. Maybe you have a computer from 2002, 2004. I have one from 2012. It feels old to me. I mean, I download programs that won't even use. And yeah, I can go buy another computer. I'm just an old lady, cheap, you know. So the value must change, and that's what it's saying to me with this. I'm getting tongue-tied. It means my human is leaving me. Winds of change here. So the world around us is going to change, and we're going to find ourselves having to grow into a bigger, brighter, better, or we will whittle and die. We will perish. Something alive in us will be eradicated. And if we're in a limited perspective, it's going to be, the difficulty of the situation will be compounded, because what's on the horizon is difficulty. We're going to have the tendency to be tempted. And remember I was saying, like, I'm feeling like lust and lower nature and desires, not higher nature and spirituality. And to me, like, the difference between a demon and an angel, they're both geniuses, but one uses their power, their genius, for unity, to connect, and the other uses it to divide, to separate. So temptations may lead astray, because in the center of it all is this darkness looms on the horizon, the raven. And so it's saying here to me, because raven is, be careful of your thoughts. Understand that we're in a world, we're in a plane, a planet, a planned net. And our thoughts create our realities, because the first creation is in thought form. You have to align it with an emotion and an action in order to manifest it into the material, but it doesn't mean it hasn't been created. It doesn't mean your subtle bodies aren't already aligning with that. You know, when I was young, like 16, 17, especially when I started to go into my former career, my mentor would always tell me, you know, if you have a burning desire, the universe will conspire to help you. You know, if the why is big enough, the how doesn't matter, you know, and that's very true. You know, we see things how we want to see them, especially when we're in our emotions and we're not in that neutrally detached, observant place. Whatever we think is going on, that's what's going on. You know, if I'm the devil because you believe I'm the devil, then I'm the devil to you. To the next person down the street, I may be an angel. Hell, even serial killers come home and kiss their wife and kids goodnight. It's one of the, some of them don't. If you're a sociopath, well, if you're a psychopath, you have no empathy. You can't feel for others. And a sociopath can't either, but they can fake it. They can feel for themselves. Psychopath won't feel anything. And all of those are on a degree of narcissism, which means you lack empathy or you're unwilling or unable to see how you impress upon others. Now, I would open that up, since we're not talking about psychopaths or sociopaths or narcissists, and just say, if you don't see how your knee-jerk response, how your maladaptive, idiosyncratic, perfunctory behaviors lead to outcomes, that's when things become a challenge. Because ultimately the universe wants us to, well, universally here, we're at war on a spiritual level. And we need to drive life forward according to passions, drives, ambitions, motivations. But these need to be things that are spirit-filled. So if the Ashe isn't moving through us, then it's coming from us, and that's what's going to deplete us. Ultimately, truth, our sense of truth, our sense of divinity, and our ability, our willingness to go out on a journey according to divine truth is what's going to liberate us, because we're going to need to be able to call a spade a spade. If something is around us trying to tempt us because we're in the depths of our emotions, we're in the darkness, being illuminated by false light, I'm hearing the word comfort. So if we're struggling and somebody wants to give us a moment of comfort, but a lifetime of destruction, you know, it's like when you sell your soul to the devil. Whatever the devil gave you in that moment was very tempting, but what's the cost long term? And see, when the 5 and the 7 of wands come together, if they come together, that's a positive experience, because that's the queen. 5 plus 7 equals 12. 12 is the grade of the queen. So that's really a queen of wands. The queen of wands has a need to experience life according to drive, desires, passions, ambitions, motivations. They want to feel like life is moving through them. And they have a need for that. Queen is the need. King is the self. It's queen versus king. Internal expression versus external expression. Ultimately, it's the coming and going of life force. And darkness looms on the horizon, meaning there's some type. So we have 3 cards here that are saying something's on the way. And what I'm perceiving that's on the way is we're going to have opportunities to say, what's alive in me? Who am I? Who do I want to grow into? What energy do I want to project onto the physical? How am I going to strike my will upon the universe? Am I going to do it from my unenlightened self or my unillumined self, or I'm going to do it for my enlightened self, right? So what we need to understand, and the queen is here. The queen is here. The queen of wands is here. And see, this is when you play with demons. Listen, y'all, I don't want to offend you. Try not to hear me and take offense. You know, if you are a practitioner of Petro and and you don't feel that you're, I'm sorry, if you're quick to anger, this is you. You know, but also it's when people come to you and they're selfish. When people come to you, they just want a bone. They don't want to love. When people come to you, and it means you're playing with fire, in my opinion. Now, sometimes that's necessary, but don't govern from that place. Don't be that person all the time. Hey, if I want to bring somebody home for the night, I'm going to invoke this energy. If I just had a breakup, I'm not going to sit there and be the queen of cups. I'm going to be the queen of wands. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to feel sexy. I'm going to feel alive and awakened. You know, I'm going to summon my inner goddess and I'm going to bring the Shakti energy up front. There's nothing wrong with this, but living and governing from that place, there's something wrong with that. And this is in the position for us, what's going on in our own environments. We have the queen and the king. So when the queen and the king come out, that is the energy of Mercury or Jupiter. So what are the Mercury and Jupiter cards? For me, it would be Temperance, the Hierophant, Not the Wheel of Fortune, even though that is the card that is Jupiter, but it would also be the Judgment card here. So the king is a motivator. The king commands from a place of drives, desires, passions, motivations, but really drives and desires. The queen governs, experiences, observes from a place of drives and desires. Now add in passions, motivations, add in ambitions as well. See, the ambition of the king is to go forward, and the ambition of the queen is to experience, but it's all life force. And so, see, because what I'm perceiving here, because we have what's called hospitality suite, and hospitality suite is when 3 or more court cards come out of the same suit. So when the queen, the king, and the knight or the prince come out, it's saying, okay, we're driving life forward according to what we want to put out into the world and what we want to manifest from the world. And what I'm detecting is we're out of alignment. We're not going to get what we want because there's something alive in us that we need to release. There's something alive in us that we're going to succumb to because we're in our lower nature in some way. And that's why we have this darkness looms on the horizon here. So let me get a little bit more clarity. Well, yeah, see, I'm detecting that there's a cold hard truth here, and we're somewhat unwilling to face it, own up to it, honor it for what it is. And we have a responsibility to the soul group to be authentic and to work on our own alignment, to stop looking outside of ourselves, to give ourselves our internal need. Go inside, take responsibility for the experience, and ask yourself what it is you're needing and go in that direction. And don't give your power away when you're exchanging with the external world to get your internal needs met as well. Because, yeah, you know, sometimes you got to do that. So you can't have sex with yourself. You know what I mean, even if you disagree. You know, you can marry yourself, but you can't marry yourself, you know. So sometimes you do got to exchange with other people to get your needs met, but you need to be in a place where you have, you know, self-worth and value. Strength, courage, and wisdom. Autonomy, franchise, and control over yourself. Getting your needs met does not mean giving away your power. So it is going to be a long journey. And this is the healing. So oftentimes we may experience the results quickly, but the meaning and what really happened, we may be thinking about that for month or year after year. You know, you can date somebody for 8 weeks, fall in love with them, fall out of love with them for 8 weeks, and you may for the next 8 years be learning the nitty-gritty individual aspects and facets of that relationship. Does that make sense? So there's healing, that we have the opportunity for healing, but there's a responsibility to the self. Joy comes from our own self-healing. And if we're walking around wounded, then other people are the problem. We have an external locus of control in that sense. Things are happening to you, not for you, and you're always going to be at war or a prisoner of war if you're in an environment that to you feels hostile. So when you can't transmute the experience and be like, well, I am suffering because I have pain that I'm refusing to recognize. I have pain that I'm trying to alleviate with external things. I have pain that I'm trying to get comfortable about. Sometimes you don't need to be comfortable. You need to be secure, which means you need to solve that. And sometimes you're responding to symptoms of a cause instead of just going for the root cause and nipping it in the butt and not having to deal with it again. And see, what's going on that we don't know is Spirit is asking us to take responsibility for ourselves, take responsibility for our feelings, take responsibility for our emotions. Even if other external energies are affecting our emotions are ours. And our feelings come from our thoughts. Thoughts can be controlled. Because universally here, there's a truth that needs to be owned and accepted. If we're unwilling to look at what we contribute to situations, we're never going to get out of them. And yeah, sometimes you need to deal with a cold, prickly experience to learn the truth about who you are and why you're here. And if you're going around seeking comfort all the time, or thinking that other people are doing things to you, and it's true, there's agendas out there, there's jealous bitches in the whole nine. You hear what I'm saying? Because luck can change, but luck is going to change when we are doing our own work, when we're manifesting things on our own. And just because it's the King of Pentacles doesn't need to talk about money. It means fueling the harvest. It means that your physical self, the energy you project out onto the physical, needs to be based in self-truth. So this journey here is of the self and your own truth. And see, I'm detecting here, remember I showed you that Queen of Wands, I said, you know, you're playing with demons. It's true. Cool your soul down. You know, what I was saying is a person who always goes and gets a party friend or a sexy lover to make themselves feel better, and then a week later, a month later, a year later, they're feeling some kind of way, like something's been taken from them, but they were giving in an unequal, uneven place. And so this is when you calm down, when you cool your soul down, when you begin to purify yourself of old beliefs, of old energies, and you allow the universe to put you in a place of authenticity, because you're no longer fighting for your experience to be anything other than what it is. So what is that you disagree with or you don't want to align with it, it shows you what it came to show you, and then it goes away and it leaves you with the higher knowledge. So I'm going to use some archetypes here because I don't know why, and I'll work on it later. I'm feeling a little judgmental, and I just want to nip any in the bud. So inability to grow up and be responsible for your dependency on others for physical security. This is the child eternal. It came out in the reverse position. So the light attributes of this is determination to remain young in body, mind, and spirit, ability to see things with fresh eyes. So right now I'm thinking of a couple of students and children of mine that when I tell them bad news, they want to run away. Like the other day, somebody did something I didn't like, and I was like, can you please don't do that? And they like ran away from me like I was screaming. Why? Because I'm giving you adjusting feedback. And you think I'm going to always have something positive to say? You know, and this is the inability to grow up and be responsible. Extreme dependency on, for me, it's not others. It's comfort. It's when you have something going on instead of, see, when you're experiencing something unpleasant, lean in. Okay, this is a negative experience. It could be over. What does this have here to teach me? Versus like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of it. It's not like you're heading off a cliff and you need to turn your vehicle. That's when you need to be urgent, like, oh my gosh, why, let me get out of this. Let me not die. A negative emotion is not the same thing. It's like, okay, something's out of alignment. What in me is out of alignment, and how do I stay in alignment moving on from this experience? Because if you just turn the wheel to avoid something, you might not learn about that pothole. You might not learn about that pitfall. You might fall into the same hole on a different road. That's what I'm picking up here. And this is on the grounds of child wounded. So we have child eternal, child wounded. So sometimes your mess will become your message. Your test and trial will become your testimony. So we have child eternal here, and remember it was in the shadow, and then we have child wounded here, and we don't know what it is, so I'll read both. So blames all dysfunctional relationships on childhood wounds, resists moving on through to forgiveness. Awakens compassion and desire to serve other wounded children, opens learning path of forgiveness. So, you know, what I'm detecting here is I feel like so judgy right now. I'll work on that on my own. So let's pull out the shadow cards. Okay, we got one. Self-worth and value, girl. Hope, wish, dream, aspiration, girl. Yep. I love my intuition. I should just shut up and do my work and stop arguing with God. Okay, so here's what I'm picking up. I'm just going to cut right through it. We're being little babies. We have jealous bitches around us. We want to be sitting with the pretty people. Some of us aren't that way. Then the other thing would be that there's agendas around us. And when there's not a flow, it's not a go. If there's pushback in the environment, adversity is the catalyst for success. Harmony in business, harmony in life, harmony in relationships is great. But you can't be addicted to it, because when you're not in harmony, that's when you're learning. You don't really learn when everything's going great. Things got to fall down to the ground. A mistake needs to be made every now and again so you can get to bigger, brighter, better. If there's not a little bit of a mix-up, a hiccup, an oopsie, how much do you really know? And if we're sitting there whining about the experience and we're not actually doing the work, the experience is going to go away for right now and it'll come back later. You cannot solve a problem in the same mind frame at which you arrived at it. And you don't go back to where you got broken to get fixed. You don't go back to where you got harmed to get healed. I grew up in LA. I see those girls all the time. To me, it's the girls who go get a boob job or a rhinoplasty or whatever, and they get a butchered surgery, and then they go back to the same doctor that messed them up to get fixed. Girl, I don't care if he's fixing your boobies for free. Don't let him put you under the knife again. He's like, if he lied to you once, even if he's growing through his experience and he's learning his lessons and all that, where's your self-worth and value? If you're not able to say, okay, well, my boundaries and my needs need to change, at the very least, I need to lower my expectations to zero and not need anything from you and make the choice to be in a relationship with you because I'm observing and being a role in your environment for you to grow and learn. And yeah, maybe a year from now, I'll give a shit about you again. You hear what I'm saying? Examples. Maybe the specifics don't work for you. But the concept and idea is, well, my findings, again, is that there's agendas around us and we have protection, but it's spiritual protection. And it comes through being willing to go through experience to deal with the harsh reality. If we're not able to deal with the harsh reality, we're not going to get better. We're going to solidify a prison of our own mind. Because we're going to be reaching from external sources to feed what's alive inside. And what's alive inside is self-worth and value, strength, courage, and wisdom, hope, faith, and optimism. These are adult cards, by the way. And so this is the Great Mother. The Great Mother is any form that she takes on. She usually takes on the form of Ma'at, Sekhmet, Isis, or Hathor. We have Hathor and Isis here. What does that mean? Venus and Taurus, Venus and Pisces. Venus. Finding the light in the darkness. But you got to do that according to your self-worth and value, your strength, courage, and wisdom, or you will go astray, or you will fall into the Illuminati or some type of fuckery. Doesn't mean like, you know, because most deception happens for those looking for the light. And so if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You'll get fooled and conned into some fuckery if you ain't got no something about you already. And so if you're suffering, it's because you're refusing to face the pain that you're experiencing. Life is painful. That's where the ascension happens. It's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. And yes, it doesn't mean you need to sit there in the onslaught of abuse. If you're uncomfortable, say, I'm uncomfortable. Let me go away for a moment, get my needs met, become comfortable, and then I'll come back and engage with the situation to alleviate it. Okay? So just because you retreat doesn't mean you relinquish. You know, some people retreat and run away. So that's what it's going to be. I'm going to pull a Sacred Rebel. Okay, we got it. Faith in the process. Faith in the process. This is a number 32, so that's 5. So that's choices, and that's independence and freedom, autonomy, franchise, and control over oneself with a practice of not setting up the foundation for. Setting up the foundation for autonomy, franchise, and control in practice means self-worth and value internally, strength, courage, and wisdom externally. Strength, courage, and wisdom internally, self-worth and value externally. Ultimately will give you independence on a spiritual level. So we're reading this from the Alana Fairchild Sacred Rebel, page 130, card number 32, Faith in the Process. No matter how powerful we are, how much courage and strength we have, there are times when we cannot quite move ourselves along to the next phase of life or creative exploration. At such times, we need some divine intervention, a little help in pulling our trolley along, so to speak. When we're at the edge of our own limits and have no more personal resources, we might be left with only one spiritual power. That is the power of faith. Fortunately, that is enough. As unlikely as it may seem, the invisible help from the universe is often more powerful than the physical effort of 1,000 men. That is because the invisible help is not limited by physical laws. It can shift, bend, and move in ways that defy limitation. It can affect, evoke, and influence situations through invisible but undeniably persuasive means. You are in a situation where you cannot set right the course of events all by yourself. This is not an indication that you have done something wrong, nor does it suggest that you are not strong enough. It is a sign that there is something bigger unfolding in your life, and your willpower will be supplemented by the power of life itself. Sometimes a bigger plan needs to manifest for the benefits of humanity and the earth. You need to shift your perspective to realize that you are part of a greater unfoldment of life, that your individual life shows the greater plan, and that you are not separate from its genius. I can't make this crap up, y'all. This is what is happening now. You happen to be instrumental to the greater plan, and as such, you need to accept your position and be moved, while also empowered and protected as you make personal progress through your role in a grander scheme. This is the time for humility, the time for trust. You need complete faith in the process and the events that are happening now. There is nothing to worry about, and you will be moved most fully and easily with the most grace and assistance through your faithful surrender. Ironically, it is through complete surrender and total faith that we become the most empowered. When we are no longer trying to impede the perfection of the greater plan, we can be aligned with it and be moved by the progress. Having faith in the benevolence of life rather than harboring the suspicion that life is seeking to catch us out, have a joke at our expense, or carelessly toss us about as though we have no meaning, then we can relax a little bit. Having faith in the progress gives you space to be curious about what is taking place and to relax enough to be open to what we have most needed or what we are most in need of. Even if we are not exactly sure what that is or how it can happen, the guidance from this oracle comes direct from the greater source of life itself. There's now an opportunity for you to be moved from the situation you're currently in to the next chapter of your life story. You cannot do it on your own. It is too big a shift. It needs the grace of life to intervene on your behalf. So what am I picking up? Because there's something I'm not saying and it's getting at me. You know, you are a spirit. You're animating a human form. And when you animate a human form, you forget about your infinite divinity. And that's so that you can grow your ascension. So you need to experience pain. You need to experience pushback. You need to experience some type of magnetic repulsion, if you would, meaning vibration. If your vibe is attracting things you don't like, then you go inside and change your vibe. If there's experience in your life, you go inside and you look at, say, what alive in me brought this experience to me. And sometimes you don't know, so you need to have some type of surrender, being like, I want this, I don't know how to do it, and I'm going to sit here and reflect on how to get there. So when you, like, say you can't pay a bill, you need to be like, well, what alive in me created the circumstance? Sometimes it wasn't anything of your own doing. Sometimes you want a job and you're trying for jobs for months and months and months and months and months, and you're not getting that job. Sometimes you need to go, well, what's alive in me? Am I applying to the wrong places? Or I have the wrong belief? Or is my self-worth and value not in the place where it would attract something? Because if you believe something's possible, it will come towards you. See, 3 + 2 = 5. So that's witchcraft. It's not witchcraft. It's wisdom applied into the physical. I don't believe in witchcraft. Witchcraft to me is dividing groups. You know, a witch is a wise woman. It's someone who pays her taxes to the temple and not the government. It's also a pagan. But a witch is a practitioner of wisdom. So I don't really believe in witchcraft. And I think the people who are really true witches, they go and divide groups of people. So there's a sinister definition to that as well. And I'm saying this here because sometimes life happens in the dark. And if you can't be in the dark and find your own light through your knowledge, because the only red there is that cushion, and red to me is carnal knowledge, knowledge that you get through incarnation. Knowledge of what your options are, choices you can make, cardinal, incarnate. The cardinal signs are Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, Aries. So that's your feelings, that's your values, that's your actions, and that's your words. You know, if I'm yawning, it means that I'm getting spirit activity. So those 2 shadow cards we pulled were self-worth and values, hope, faith, optimism. You know, this is your dreams, desires, hopes, wishes, dreams, aspirations, heart's desires. And I keep hearing the song in the back of my head. Strength, courage, and wisdom. Who is that? India Ari, right? So that's what I got for the sermon. I'm sorry if it was a little prickly. We're working things out. I wouldn't say struggling, but I'm being tested right now. And, you know, I just got to be kind of gentle and soft and loving at the moment, especially with myself. So it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve you. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to do so. Please check the show notes because there's announcements there, and I won't spend the time talking about it now. Until we meet again, until we read again. Namaste, Dhanavad, and Nashe. Bye, everyone. Take good care of yourself, beloved tribe and family. Au revoir. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen.